This is the Shine On You Crazy Daisy podcast, and I'm your host, Trudy Simmons from the Daisy Chain Group, providing platforms for women entrepreneurs to be seen and heard. This platform is for women entrepreneurs that want to hear the real stories of what it takes to be yourself and run a business with all the different hats that you might have to wear. These are the stories of the tenacious, the rebellious, and the resilient women that are working towards the future that they want to build for themselves and their families. Hello and welcome to the Shine On You Crazy Daisy podcast and the Shine On You Crazy Daisy book, volume 2. Today, I introduce you to Nicola Webster from NJ Webster Consulting. Nicola, thank you so much for being a part of all of this. Tell us about your business.
Hi. Thank you for including me. So I'm Nicola and I have my own business helping companies create a social media presence for themselves. My background is brand licensing, and I've worked with toy companies, apparel companies, publishers on brands from ones you will have heard of and use every day to ones that you've never ever heard of. And I combine that experience with social media strategy and training to help people really stand out and make the most of themselves in today's digital world.
Amazing. We all need that. But how did you find the transition of going from corporate to self-employed? How did you find when you had to go and make all these decisions for yourself?
A proper roller coaster. And I think the big thing is that for years, a lot of people always say, oh, I crave that responsibility. I hate having to get sign off. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. But what I really learned is that actually you can't hide behind anything. So when there's a difficult decision, you can't say, oh, I'm sorry, it's company policy, or I'm sorry, it's out of my hands, because everything is in your hands. So that's the biggest shock, that you are responsible for absolutely everything, from simple things as in, oh, who should we use to print our materials, to the big decisions like, shall we take this person on? What should we pay? What's our budget? And it is a huge learning curve that you really have to work on the business, not just in the business. And that's the biggest difference going from employee to owner.
Absolutely. And I think that we as business owners sometimes don't think about that in enough detail, that when you work for yourself, these decisions are so important, but it's one of those things that we want to be able to do that. But at the same time, we just want someone to bounce it off, or we just want someone to make those decisions for us sometimes. So
absolutely,
it is something we have to think about. What I loved about your chapter is you talked about not wanting to be just mum. And it's one of those things that many people don't like saying out loud because it can sound a bit mean. But what's the importance of that for you?
Well, I think it's hard because the biggest learning curve of being a mum, I think, is that you lose your identity. You are suddenly not Nicola. You're not known for who you work for, where you work, and what you've done. You're known as so-and-so's mum from the playground, or, oh, that mum that's often late to the coffee morning, or, oh, that's the mum who she was there all that time, and do you remember when her child? And you just kind of lose your identity. Like, even if you look in someone's phone on a playground, everyone's there with the name of the kid and then mum's name next to it. So you stop being you. And I found that really hard because, and it's a strange thing to admit, because I love being a mum, love my children, would do anything for them, as would, every parent. But you don't spend 15, 20 years working, you don't go to university, you don't do all of that to suddenly just say, oh, I'm going to stop being me and I'm going to be so-and-so's mum, because you also know that at some point they're not going to rely on you 24/7 in the way they do when they're tiny. And that, I think, was the hardest thing to accept, but to accept that it was important to not lose your identity. It was important to be a person as well, and also to set that good example. I've got girls, like my daughters, I don't want them to grow up thinking, oh, well, mum worked really hard, but then she had children and then she spent her days organising school fetes. That's not what you want it to be. And it's the guilt that comes with that is a challenge on both sides. And I think that's something that I've really had to work on to overcome, but actually to be proud of the fact that I'm not just a mum. I am a lady who happens to have children, who also has her own business.
And what's the wonderful conversation in the chapter is the fact that you wanted to be known not just as mum, but as yourself. And you have a business that but still is set up to be there for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the biggest driver for going freelance. I mean, there were all sorts of things that happened on the way, but when it came to it, I thought I don't want to miss out on those all important things because I'm stuck in an airport somewhere because a connection went wrong, or because it was felt really important that I went to some conference, and actually, you know, in 10 years time I would remember that I'd missed out on a moment in my child's life, not the event that I was at. And it was that point of, I want to work and I want to be myself, but I also want to work around having a family. So I want to be able to be at the school gates, I want to be at sports day, nativities, etc. But I want my career to fit around that, as opposed to trying squeezing in family around, oh, well, I better not do that event because I've got to go to this event or this trade fair, this conference, whatever it is. It's about making the two work together. And possibly a plus side, actually, of the pandemic, that people have realized that actually flexible working doesn't mean that you're part-time, and it doesn't mean that you're skiving off. It means that you work in the time and the day that suits you and suits your routine.
So in that, you'd started your business just before lockdown. How did you use the lockdown time, and what did you learn and gain from that period of time?
So I became self-employed 6 months before lockdown started. So I was just getting going. And at first there was that horrible, horrible feeling of, what have I done? Like, you know, how on earth am I going to build a business in a pandemic? My children at the time were 2 and just turning 6. And I thought, this is a disaster. I don't know where the next bit of money is coming from. But actually, once I sat down and thought about it, it was a blessing in disguise, because nobody was forcing me to try and do work at times of day that didn't work for me. I could pick and choose what I wanted. I took a step back and we did all those things. You know, we baked, we cried, we painted, we drawed, we did everything you can possibly imagine. But it meant I could really think about what was important to me. I didn't rush to take on work that was sort of coming my way before lockdown, because I thought, actually, is this really what I want to do? Are they a client that's really going to understand that I want to be flexible? And it gave me that bit more time to really think about what I wanted from my business, to work on my business. And so as things have opened up again now, I'm able to pick and choose what I want to do. I'm in that position where I can say, actually, thanks for approaching me, but that's not a great fit for me, as opposed to thinking, okay, yes, I can take it all on and I can do it now.
Right. Do you think it gave you the ability to set up better boundaries in who you were willing to work with and who didn't fit with you?
Definitely, because I think in the beginning, when you go freelance, you panic. You think, oh, I don't quite know where, you know, the next work's coming from. So you say yes to everything. And when someone says, oh, you know, you're new, perhaps we could do a deal, you think, oh, okay, yeah. So, and you kind of think, oh, I just want to please everybody, because you want that reputation as a freelancer. But actually, because I had to take a step back, because I couldn't take on everything, because I had to think about the demands of homeschooling and no childcare and all of us being in the house all the time at that moment, it made me think, no, that's not a good fit. That's not right. It's time to step back and probably be more, some people describe it as selfish. I'd actually say it's kind of looking after yourself and saying, no, you're not the right person for me to work with at this time. Thank you, and move on, and just be polite about it. But, you know, be selfish.
But it's not selfish. It worries me when people do say that word, because we're businesswomen and we can make these decisions for what suits us and our business. It is our business, and that's the best ability. That's why we set these things up. So yeah, I love talking about that word selfish, because it's one of those things that grates on people. It's not selfish. And putting your family first, putting your business first ahead of the work that might come in, is our ability to be able to grow our business in our way.
Absolutely.
What's one lesson that you would want every entrepreneur to know?
I think it's that you can make mistakes, because I think the big thing is, when you go out there, you really want it to be right and you strive for that perfection, but actually to be yourself and to show that you're human and that you're learning too is the biggest thing. And I think people really respect you when you say, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I hadn't considered that, or I wasn't able to do it, I couldn't do it because of XYZ, but this is me and this is what you're getting. And you stop hiding behind someone or something or a set of rules or a screen, whatever it might be. And the biggest lesson to take away is just be yourself, and actually everyone will respect you for it much, much more.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your favorite business book?
I'm going to show you a magazine. So this is Freelancer magazine, and I think issue 3 is about to come out. It was set up by a lady called Sophie Cross, who is a fantastic marketeer and entrepreneur. She's actually got Hampshire roots and Hampshire connections as well. And it's a brilliant magazine. And for me, it's helped me bring together a brilliant community. There's something in there for everyone. There are people in there from all walks of life, in all industries, but the thing they have in common is they've all set up their own business. And it is, for me, it's the perfect coffee break reading material for any freelancer.
That's amazing. I haven't heard of it, so I'm going to look into that, because
I will send you a link.
Anybody that has the ability to pull all these stories together, as we're doing here, everybody needs to hear these stories, because they're going to be sat there thinking, oh, I'm the only one that's going through this. And when you read Freelancer magazine, when you read a book like this, you can see that you're not alone.
Definitely.
I love that. Nicola, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being so honest about being a mum and running your own business. And thank you for being a part of Shine On You Crazy Daisy.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the Shine On You Crazy Daisy podcast. If you've liked what you've seen today, then please make sure that you click the subscribe button to this channel to see more inspiration and motivation as more of these stories keep coming out. And if you want even more, click on the link below this video and go and have a look at the series of books Shine On You Crazy Daisy, and get even more inspiration and motivation for you and your business.